folks, Ariel over here at Nyth with a anniversary video. It has been 8 full years, well a little over, since moving into this tiny house. We're now in year 9. The anniversary of doing that was, I guess, Thanksgiving Eve, which I totally forgot about until one of you guys mentioned happy anniversary, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm terrible at remembering dates. My own birthday, anniversary, anything like that. Anyway, so Burley and I are snuggled here on the couch for a minute to talk about how I feel about living in a tiny house after this many years. In year 9 here now. And Burley's going to be a boy dog and do that. Anyway, it's a snowy day outside. There's a little teeny sucker hole of sunshine for a sec and a big dark wall of gray clouds coming in. So it's a good day for doing indoor things. So, if you want the, the really brief version, if you've never been here before, welcome. Brief version is, I'm really glad I bought this tiny house. It's worked out to be one of the best financial decisions, probably the best financial decision of my life. It's worked really well for giving me a lot of freedom and flexibility and independence and all that stuff. So if you want the brief version of my thoughts, I still have no regrets about having done this. Now let's talk a bit more about that. I know a lot of you guys have been following along, some from the very, very beginning, which is crazy. I can't believe it's been this many years. And if you've been following and you haven't been seeing all the videos, I've gotten, again, a few comments from folks like, oh, I haven't seen a video from you in a while. I think we're like 820 videos or something on the channel, whether you're on YouTube or Odyssey or whatever. But if you're one of the, I've only got those comments on YouTube. If you have not been seeing videos, there has been a bunch. You can always just go to the channel homepage, and the second tab over says videos, and you see all of them in chronological order, and you can find anything you missed there. Also, you can double check. Some people said they were getting automatically unsubscribed or not getting notifications. That's not something I have any control over. That's something YouTube does, so you can double check that if you have been missing things that you wanted to see. Hi, Pollywog. I am talking to the camera. I am, and I love you. I do. Can you lay down here? Oh, yes, you're such a snuggle boy. That's an awkward looking position. But I will rub your ears. So, it's been a long time here. The house has now been in, mostly in 2 spots. Very briefly, it's first winter in a slightly different spot because I couldn't get it to the spot where it currently is, or where it was for many, many years. You want tea? I don't think you like tea. I don't think so. And how has this worked out? I've done some videos. Here, baby. Can you turn around? Come here. Just lay down. That's a good boy. We're not doing anything interesting, I promise. Not interesting when you're a dog. I've done some detailed videos talking about kind of the financial side of things, but if you haven't seen any of those, you're welcome to look them up. For the area where I was living for most of those years, the amount that I spent total, and there's a blog post about this, maybe even several of them, the amount that it cost me total to buy this tiny house was about what I had spent in the previous 7 years. It's been so long since I did this math, I don't remember now. Something like that on rent. So after those years, even given the past history, this house would work out to be free now to me versus having just continued paying rent. And rent prices have gone up dramatically. I think at the current rent prices, the total I spent to buy the house would be paid off in rent savings in just over 4 years. You're kind of in the way for the camera. You want outside? I think Burley wants outside. He's not interested in the camera. He'd rather go sleep in the snowdrift. Anyhow, so that has obviously worked out really well, and I've talked about this before. That means, because most likely there could have been, I could have moved out of the area, I could have moved to Kansas, I could have moved to China, you know, could have done many other things, but for staying in the area where I currently had my life and friends and everything, compared to my other options, this house is now paid for itself and is free, and if I burn it down today, it would still have, I still would have come well ahead financially and be a great big bonfire head. And obviously there's no reason to burn it down. This is built to a higher construction standard than most custom homes being built today, and there is no reason that it should not be a just fine house for me or somebody else 100 years from now. Still, there's, you know, there's some wear and tear on, you know, there's a few scratches in the countertop and stuff like that that wears and tears on any house. But the only thing really that would deteriorate over time would be the tires, and therefore the ability to move it. But if you weren't concerned about moving it, and she might never move again, but you can always get new tires. The rest of the house is going to be a perfectly fine, cozy little cabin here for pretty much indefinitely. Now, the bittersweet part of that is that this might be the last anniversary video that I do living in here. If you guys have been following along, you probably know that my husband and I bought a property of our own. We rolled the tiny house in here, which is a major advantage of having a house on wheels. When you buy a place that's bare land, to be able to just roll your house in the next day and park it there and go to living in a comfortable space. All the space in here has been built very, very well for exactly my needs. So it's a little bit of a not such a perfect fit with Clay and I together. And we do plan to build a small house on the property, kind of on the other side of the orchard. If you've been watching any of the videos, we haven't got started on that yet. We were hoping to this year. That didn't happen due to many other projects. Building my brother a cabin, working on Clay's shop, taking care of the garden, fighting the quackgrass, all that stuff that we've been doing, raising duck babies and chicken babies and so on. But we are hoping next spring to be able to start on building a small home. So if that goes well, this is a whole lot of ifs, we might be in that by next year. And small home, I did discuss this a bit in the last Q&A, would be something like the general layout of this place if you just shoved that wall out and made it into a square. This house is 24 feet long. What we've talked about is building something that's like 24 by 24. This is only 8 feet wide on the inside, a little less than that. It's 8'6" to the eaves and such outside. So something like that where you have a little bigger living room, a little bigger dining room, room for two people to pass each other more comfortably in the kitchen, slightly wider bathroom, and probably bringing the bedroom down to the first floor, because we'd like to build somewhere we can hopefully age in place and hope to live till we both die. Anyway, so yeah, that's kind of bittersweet to think about, that as I do this anniversary video, that by this time next year, if things go as planned, may not be living in here. Now, I already had several people offer that they would like to buy Nyth. She is not for sale. We could always change our plans on down the road, but my plan is to keep her here, and you know, she's been such a big part of my life, I can't really see wanting to let her go, but I think that she will be a guest house, either for when we have friends or family. I've got a bunch of siblings and nieces and nephews, and Clay has some daughters and, you know, possibly grandkids at some point here and stuff like that. So when people like that or other friends we have that come from out of town to visit, a place either for them to stay, or we might do some like vacation rentals at some point as well for some extra income. I think there might be some people out there who enjoy the idea of staying a few nights in a little off-grid tiny house on a little working homestead with Golden Boy and Willie to crow and wake them up in the morning and watch the honeybees right out the kitchen window over the sink, and see the flowers blooming in the garden and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, none of that's happened yet, but just wanted to get that out of the way for a minute, because then I really just want to talk about how this has worked out for me. Nyth, if you don't know, is, well, I'm butchering the pronunciation, I am aware of that at this point. It's Welsh for my nest, and this little house has really been a perfect nest for me. When I watch all the birds in nature, everything from teeny weeny little, I've never actually found a hummingbird nest, there's lots of hummingbirds around, so there must be nests. Maybe one year I'll actually find one and get to film that for you, but everything from teeny weeny hummingbirds to little warblers to robins to bald eagles and so on, all of those creatures build nests, and they don't ever build them like, well, when we move out, we want it to be, you know, have a high resale value, so I'm a robin, but I'm going to make sure it could fit a bald eagle or a hummingbird. They don't do anything like that. They make it just fit them. And it's so amazing when you watch a mama. We find lots of robin's nests every year, so that's one of the easy ones to compare. You find this mama robin sitting in her nest, and it just fits her and her 3 or 4 or 5 or however many babies she's got that year nestled under her. And it's a perfect fit for that bird, not for anybody else. Maybe not even for the next robin, but it's perfect for her and her babies that she's raising. And I feel like Nyth here it really has been my nest. It has been an absolutely perfect fit for me. And a lot of the stuff is not necessarily things that somebody else would want. Half the house is a kitchen, and if you don't cook and can and freeze and ferment and dehydrate and bake and all that stuff, you may not want to spend a lot of your limited space on a big kitchen. That was important to me, and that's a choice I've never regretted. As far as downsizing, period, to be in a smaller space, I've talked about this over the years, I got rid of some large furniture items that my roommate and I had when we had shared a much larger rental apartment in a town together. But other than that, again, I set up this little nest where all the things that were important to me stayed. I had room to cook. I had room to store, you can probably see jackets and scarves and stuff hanging over there by the door. Enough clothing to be comfortable in the kind of climate I live in. I don't live in the kind of climate where I can have, 2 t-shirts, a pair of jeans, and 1 jacket. I think it's about 17 degrees outside right now, and this is one of the warmer days that we've had in the past 3 weeks. It was snowing earlier, snowed last night, looks like snow off and on the next bunch of days, which is great. We need some more snow depth here. We've had a couple low winters in a row. So I could fit all my clothing up in the loft. There's plenty of room to sleep in the little cupboards. If you want to see all these details, look at where do I store clothing in a tiny house, where do I store food in a tiny house, all that kind of stuff. I try to label all the videos with pretty self-explanatory names. I try to come up with interesting titles, but where when you click on it, you got a good idea what it's talking about. So if you got a question about something that I'm discussing here, go look up on the channel homepage on Odyssey or YouTube or whatever, and look for, search the word clothing, and you will probably find the video talking about that, etc. Plenty of room to store lots of food because I try to grow and forage as much as I can through the summer season here and preserve as much of that as possible for the winter. The cupboards up at kind of the foot of the bed up there. That's where I kept my backpacking stuff because I like to go hiking and backpacking, and I've got tents and sleeping bags and all that kind of gear. I've got cameras. They often tend to sit right here or on the little table. I've had room to have friends over. A lot of different people have spent nights here. Sometimes, like if it's my aunt and uncle, I gave them the loft and I slept on the couch. Sometimes somebody else sleeps on the couch. I think the most we had in here overnight one time was 6 people. That did involve somebody sleeping on an air mattress on the floor as well. And this is about 160 square feet in here. And it's just really fit my lifestyle. A lot of my activities and hobbies. So this isn't going to be the same for everyone. It may not fit you or your lifestyle. I just always encourage people to think out what kind of commitment and expenses, either of money or your time or whatever, fits what is important to you. Because so many of my activities are outdoors. I like to go photograph wildlife. I like to go walk up and down mountains. I like to go garden. I like to go snowshoeing, etc. That's all stuff that takes space outside. So then storing some minimal amount of the clothing or equipment that makes that necessary, I don't need a big space inside to do any of those things. I don't keep pet mountain lions or grizzly bears in the house. I got to go outside to find them. So for me, it's worked really, really well. And now I'd have to look up what the Welsh is, or maybe Danish. His family's Danish, but I figured this is my nest, and hopefully what we're going to build is our nest, something that fits Clay and I very perfectly together, because yeah, I pretty much have all the space in here full of my stuff. And he is much like me. He doesn't need a lot of inside a house space. He has a lot of tools and that kind of equipment, and that's why we built his shop. But that's the plan on that. But yeah, as far as this, it's worked really well. I have never regretted building it exactly, and it's kind of a moot point because I'm not trying to sell the house either, but even if I was and somebody else wanted to remodel something and build the stairs different or get rid of part of the kitchen and make that a bigger couch or put a big TV screen up or whatever somebody else might want that wasn't important to me, I still don't have any regret about having built this layout specifically to fit me and my activities and my needs and my wants. And in here, I feel very much like those mama robins or whatever other bird that I see on their nest, where they're just nestled into their cozy little space, and it just fits them. It doesn't look like it would fit anything else. It just fits them. And as far as getting stuff in here, I've talked about downsizing and being able to clean out things that are more or less toxic in different ways, but I think I've discussed this before. When I first thought about buying a tiny house, I made a pile of all of my things that it was important for me to keep. Cooking utensils, some of the bookshelves up here above the camera, some of the books I want to read again, or I want to be able to share with someone else or reference, camera gear, all the stuff we just talked about. I put it all in a pile in part of the kitchen stuff on the dining table and everything else in my bedroom. And then when I went and looked at a model, it wasn't laid out exactly like this, of a tiny house. First time I'd ever seen one in person, first time I'd ever been in one. I sat there and I looked around and I thought, okay, so I can visualize how big this pile of stuff is. If I need to put these pots and pans and utensils and whatever somewhere, okay, they would fit there. Then let's see, clothing would go in those step drawers. Could put my tent and backpack there, etc. Okay, so now I still have this item. Where would I put that? Okay, we can make a space here. There's storage under the couch, stuff like that. And was able to sit there and kind of just put the puzzle together in my mind and be like, yeah, I can get all the different things that are important to me into here and still have room to live and work and eat and sleep and, sit down and be comfortable. And I thought, this is gonna work for me. And that's not a decision I've ever regretted, though it was a little overwhelming when I first made it. This was by far the biggest purchase I guess when Clay and I bought this property, that was about tied. It's the biggest purchase I ever made by myself. And that was a little scary, but it is not one I've regretted. And once again, I want to emphasize that doesn't mean I think this is the perfect kind of lifestyle or space or decision for everybody. I think it's a really good option. It's obviously worked out very well for my particular needs and interests and lifestyle and situation. And I think it's great to have more options, and I love seeing tiny houses having a wider adoption as an option. Like people have giant McMansions, people live in apartments, people live in dorm rooms, people live in condos or townhomes. There's all these different housing options, and no one of them is perfect for every person in every situation, but I think having more options is generally a good thing. And yeah, over the years I've seen a lot more people do something along those lines. I've got a cousin and her family who their house burned down in a house fire almost a year ago now, I think, something like that. And they want to rebuild a bigger place. They have 3 children as well, and they in the meantime they fixed up a shed. It's a little bigger than this, and I haven't gotten to see it in person. She lives on the other side of the country, but it sounds like they've got a beautiful little house in there that's working great for them to be in temporarily till they have the time to get something built. It's working great for Clay and I, because everything we're doing around here, we're doing pretty much by ourselves. We had the shell of the shop put up by a company, which we probably wouldn't do again. Everything else we've done ourselves, and so it's happening as we have time and cash to do it, because we don't have any debt and are not interested in taking on any debt. I did when I first purchased this place, and that was a hard decision. I'd had no debt in my life before that, and that was a little bit scary. I think debt is it's a tool that can be used, but it's much like running a chainsaw or a firearm or sharp knives in your kitchen. Any of those things, they can be very, very dangerous. Or fire, this place is heated with fire. These are all things that can be wonderful tools, but if not handled correctly, can be very devastating as well. And unfortunately, we probably all see a lot of that happening around us these days. It worked out well. I had a 15-year loan. Again, I've got lots of finance details in past videos just on that subject. As an RV, because that's technically what government agencies consider this house. And I worked pretty much day and night at jobs I didn't always love till I paid that off. I paid it off in just about 5 years and was back to debt free, and again, has worked out well because now I have the house. We could live in here forever. That would be more crowded with 2 people. We have it forever to share with friends and family, to rent to somebody else, to sell if I ever change my mind about that, and so on. And yeah, but the things we're doing in the future, we're doing them, because we have a place we can be warm and dry, and that's a benefit. I know of people who have moved into tiny houses who had no desire at all to be in a tiny house, but they were able to get one or build one relatively inexpensively, buy some property for cash, some bare land, and then move in and do the same thing we're doing now. Live in that until you have time to build the thing that you really want. So it's just another really good option that I'm glad exists. Obviously, smaller homes were the norm for most of human history. I have to laugh a little bit every time somebody says something about, oh, it's so deprived and, such a miserable life or something. I'm like, guys, I got more stuff and comfort and whatever than most humans that have ever lived on this planet. Like, I'm warm and dry, I know, have a pretty good idea where my next meal is coming from. This is not a bad life at all. And I love everything we're building here on our property. And if you're curious about the whole search for buying a property, I've got a whole series of videos on that, buying bare land, and just, I'm not a real estate agent or lawyer or anything, just all the experiences we personally encountered in that whole process and lessons we learned in the process of ending up here. So, if you're watching all this and thinking, oh, well, I guess I'm done with all of Ariel's videos, if by next year she's not going to be living in a tiny house full time, if that's your only interest here, then maybe that's true. And if so, I've enjoyed having you around for the time you were here. What we're going to continue to I have no plans to quit making videos if I'm able to continue doing so, and it's still going to be the same kinds of things. We're going to be building our nest, and so you get to see the whole construction process of a little house, and I'm excited about that. I've learned a lot about building from helping Clay build stuff in his shop, build our chicken barn, build my brother's cabin. My construction skills have improved considerably, I think, because I was able to build a duck hut that looks somewhat respectable. A few years ago, my construction skills involved, I didn't have any ability or knowledge of how to use like a saw for cutting boards, so I could build things. If I had boards that were whatever length they were, that's what they were. I didn't know how to make them different sizes. So I've learned a lot over time about that, and it's going to be fun and a lot of work to build our own place. So there's going to be videos about that, and then all the stuff we've always done, which, once again, is not necessarily everyone's perfect life, but what I'm trying to do is share I feel like I've been really blessed in life to have had parents and grandparents and a community and co-workers and, a husband now, and so a whole lot of people around me who taught me a lot of very useful skills that many people my age or younger have not had an opportunity to learn firsthand in person from somebody like I did, and I just don't want to be a dead end of all that information, so I'm going to try to continue to show all the lessons I've learned over the years and continue to learn about gardening, especially specific to a cold climate, because that's what we live in, various cooking things, because I so much love making good, tasty, nutritious food, from scratch. It's less expensive, it tastes better, and you have the flexibility to make it exactly the way you want. If every recipe says put cilantro in it and you hate cilantro, just don't put any in, or whatever else you don't like. And it's hopefully going to be fun, as long as everything survives another winter here, to continue to watch the orchard grow and the berry patch, and hoping we'll have some time to do more foraging and make more herbal salves and stuff like that. Now I've got my own beeswax to use for that, and learning the whole adventure of learning to keep bees and having our own chickens and ducks. We're on our second generation of both of those that have now reproduced themselves on our property, and hopefully next spring we'll have at least lots of baby chicks. We'll see about lots of baby ducklings as well. And so there's just going to be continued videos, as long as I have time and the ability to do so, on all of those things. And I'm hoping that sharing those skills is useful to some other people who do want to learn them, and to continue to pass that knowledge on and not be a dead end of it. And then I love the nature and wildlife and everything we're surrounded by. So again, as long as I'm able, I will continue to, when I have time, put together videos of everything from what the little bugs are doing to what the grizzly bears are doing, and the nature and wildlife. I think I've got a whole, somebody asked about if I would do a whole channel just dedicated to that. I don't have a channel dedicated to just nature and relaxation, but there are playlists for that. I've got one, I think, called Relaxing Sights and Sounds. That's more of videos where I either talk none or almost not at all about anything, and it's just the creek and the ducks and the honeybees on a flower and the clouds overhead and a fox walking by, all that kind of stuff. And then there's also a playlist that's just wildlife, where often I do describe what's going on or a little bit of the history or info of either the scene or that particular animal or whatever, because we have a lot of cool wildlife in Wyoming, and I've had a lot of cool experiences with getting to film them. I have one I need to get put together that you guys haven't seen of the most special wildlife encounter I've ever had, and I've got a ton of footage. I just haven't got that one together. So this is, I think most of my anniversaries have been anniversary videos of the tiny house here have been kind of rambly, but I've wanted to do a little update every year. I'm late on the anniversary this year, like I said. I'm bad at remembering dates, period, but because what I find useful is not, I know it's some people's thing and they want to know how something worked out. They want to watch like an unboxing video and somebody take out all the package and say, well, the box says it's the most amazing blanket in the world. One of you guys made this for me. Thank you so much. It matches my house and it's beautiful. That I don't find particularly useful, though. What I find useful is somebody coming back a year later or 6 months later or 9 years later or whatever and saying, so now I've been using this thing and here's how it worked. This is the first thing that wore out. This is what it's good at. This is what it's bad at. That's what I find useful. And so I just try to do that same thing. So there's lots of videos, and not that they're not helpful, especially if you want to build your own or something. You know, lots of videos out there. We're moving into a tiny house and here's our getting it all built and such, but there's a lot of questions often about, does anyone stay living in them? There's all this excitement and hype about getting in one and building it, and well, here am I 9 years later. I am still living in one, and I probably won't be forever. That was another thing I've gotten asked a lot over the years, which I always found kind of funny. People would say, oh, well, your house works for you now, but what if you get old? What if you whatever? And like, I don't, kind of like birds making their nests fit what they need at the time. I just find that interesting because I don't often see people be like, well, you're living in a college dorm room right now. What about if you later have a family and 6 kids? Well, obviously, most people would say, if I can, I'm going to move out of the college dorm room and probably have a bigger house. It's always seemed fairly simple to me, but somehow people tend to look at tiny houses different than just being another housing option, which is interesting. But anyway, it's an option that's worked really great for me for a very long time, and now we'd like to build a small house instead of a tiny house and make our nest together where all of our stuff fits us and what we do together, since now there's 2 of us and not just me. So that's what you do if your needs change. You do something different. Just like I, moved out of my parents' house at one point and moved into my own apartment. And then I have a best friend who we didn't even know each other that well at the time. We became best friends over the years of living together. We moved into a 2-bedroom place, and got to know each other really well after a lot of years of living together. So when your needs change, you just do something else. That's kind of what people or foxes or bluebirds or whatever creatures have always done. You get what you need at the time and then you do something else later. So anyway, I hope that all makes sense. That's some of my thoughts as I've been pondering the last few days that I need to get this anniversary video done. And I was trying to think if there's anything else that I could say that's new or big or different compared to the other anniversary videos. And I think my main point that I've just tried to make for a lot of years now is that I hope people really just consider, not that my tiny house or my lifestyle or whatever it is perfect, though I certainly hope if you want to do some of the same things I'm doing, that some of the info I share can be helpful with that, but to just stop and think about, what do you want? Because I get a lot of messages from folks who are older than me, and over many years now, along the lines of, I am old now and I can't X, Y, and Z, and I just wish I wish I'd spent my life on something different. And to me, that's kind of sad to hear. So whatever it is, if your dream is to have a giant mansion and that makes you happy, it did for my landlords where I lived and parked this house in the clearing for many years. They had a massive house. They lived in it till they died. It made them happy till the day they died. I think it was a ridiculous use of resources and space, but it was their stuff and that's what they did with it, and it made them truly happy, and they did the things they needed to do in life to make that possible for them. And that's great. I'm glad they got to, live and die in the place they loved. So that's just what I would want people to stop and think out. Whatever age you are, the rest of your life starts right now. Stop and think out what is important to you, and what steps do you need to take to get to where you want to be. I know there are people who probably have just joined us recently and are like, oh, all this girl does is walk around in snowflakes and look at her ducks and doesn't even have to work. I do still clean houses and stuff outside of here, but I do not work off of our place nearly the amount of hours that I did for many years until I paid this off. And at that point I was waiting tables and I was cleaning vacation rentals for other people and mowing lawns and painting barns and stuff that more or less was not all of my favorite things. They were just all ways I could, earn enough income to pay this off. And that's, the benefits now were worth that, but man, there were some long, exhausting days. 16, 20-hour days of being on my feet, whether it was at the same job or going back to back at different jobs. So if you figure out where you want to be in life, my point is that you may not get there instantly and tomorrow, but if you figure out what that is and what it would require to get there, then you can start working toward that and get there eventually, which I think is much preferable to getting to the end of your life and saying, I wish I had spent the life I had doing something different than what I did. Yeah, none of us ever know how long life is going to be, but as long as we're around, I think we still have to, make plans and make decisions, and so that's just what I would encourage people to do. Stop and think out, what do you really want? What's important to you? What do you want to be able to spend your time doing? What's it going to take to make that happen? And this is how I'm going to go about it. So I hope that's the message people mostly take away from here. I appreciate all the love and support and beautiful messages I've gotten from so many of you over so many years now. I've made some genuinely, terrific real world friends that I probably would have never made without, the contacts made through sharing videos like this. And and I've met some genuine jerks too that I may not have met. So there is that, but far, far more of the wonderful people. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on now being in year 9 here in the tiny house, and from our little place to you on this snowy winter day. That's my wishes and thoughts, that each of you would be able to also build your nest, whatever that looks like, that fits you perfectly. Obviously for everybody that's different, and be able to work toward having more of what you love in your life and less of what you don't care about over time. And a little bit of a look at the future. So we'll see by next year's anniversary what we're doing and looking at and talking about then. Hope you all have a wonderful evening.
We hope you enjoyed it.
Come back next time for more adventures.
Thanks for watching.